Everybody join in. Hey, we're going to get started here. We're letting people get a chance to join. So if you need to grab a water or a snack here, we're going to get started. We're going to cover the basic flow of information for the convention tomorrow night. Again, it's we're really excited that we have a convention, and we're excited that we've got great candidates to pick and choose from, and we're going to be talking about the 90 delegate slots for Greenville County too tonight. Great seeing people join. Up to 16, that's good. We'll give it another 1 minute, and then we'll jump in at 6:04. Thanks for joining. Hey, Dave, I see you out there. Carrie, Irene, Terry, Valerie, Becky, Christy, my lovely wife, John Clark, Adrian, Glenn, thanks for joining. All right, 6:03, not quite 6:04. Hey, so my name's Joe Citeno. I'm happy to say I'm a committee leader for civic engagement for Greenville Republican Party. Happy to be doing that. Tonight, we're going to cover some information flow down on the county convention tomorrow night. Make sure everybody's got their questions answered. We're basically going to flow down information. Then we're going to take questions on the convention for about 10 minutes. And then if there are other questions, once those stop on the convention, then we'll take questions about any candidate related stuff. That's good. That's good. So with that, before we get started, I want to just mention one thing tomorrow too. 95% of the people that are going to be at the convention tomorrow are awesome people who care a ton about our nation and care about freedom and care about our Constitution, care about our county. And so just remind yourself to be seeking the best in people and seeking the good and try to build bridges, because we need unity in the Republican Party overall. And then seek peace as much as you can. So with that, I want to turn it over to Jeff Davis. Jeff's our chairperson currently for the Greenville County GOP, is going to walk you through what you'd expect. Jeff's been to some of the other county conventions, so he's got some knowledge and know-how. Hopefully this will help you all. So Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Yes, I've got apparently 1 month left on my term as chairman, because apparently it doesn't switch over. This is new this year until the state convention. So I'll be chairman until the state convention, which we think is going to be on May 20th, Saturday, May 20th, but we're not sure yet. But tomorrow, everybody knows, and we really hope this to be a learning experience, but tomorrow is the Greenville County Convention. We do have a draft agenda that we've been provided by the SCGOP. Mark Benoit has sent this over, and I went over it with him on Friday. We had a conference call Friday morning to kind of discuss it. But realize, and this is going to be at the TD, what's the old TD Convention Center, now called the Greenville Convention Center, at 1 Expo Drive. It's not the first entrance when you come off of Pleasantburg by that Krispy Kreme. It's not the first entrance, but it's the second. The parking will be free. And this is Monday night. And then you'll come in that big main entrance where there's a horseshoe and just ride the escalator up. It'll be in the main ballroom upstairs. So the ballroom's pretty large. The ballroom should hold, as when we rented it for this past Saturday, or had it reserved for us for our convention, as our ECs had voted on. It will hold 3,000. There will be enough. The people that will be allowed in, that is the SCGOP as of right now, they will only allow in delegates and alternates. So we're going to discuss, and we're trying to work through where maybe guests can come in as well, but that'll be something that we won't be able to do until after the convention itself starts. So we were yesterday. We were in Pickens County for their county convention. As you guys probably read or saw the email today, our friends, the America First slate over there, won everything outright. think they had 80, 81, 82% on all the votes. But what happened with them is the SCGOP would not let them have guests. And then once the meeting started, somebody made a motion to allow guests to come in. Obviously, that's going to pass the body. I don't think anybody in their body had an objection to it. So they allowed guests in after the convention started. So I wish we could say it was wide open and bring folks and let them see, but we just won't know until, I can't guarantee until the convention actually starts. But credentialing starts at 6 p.m. So I would highly recommend getting there early. The state party will be running that initial credentialing to allow you into the room. But you can get there at 6, get credentialed, and go ahead and go into the main ballroom. But we will actually, they will have other people there early, probably around 5 o'clock, maybe do a little tailgate or something in the parking lot. We try to get food trucks, but they wouldn't allow us to have food trucks. So we're trying to make this a fun experience. And it always becomes difficult with the party and difficult with the other parties of the slate, the other slate that's out there. But 6 p.m. credentialing will start. You do not need to bring any money. There will be $35 for state delegates later, but that is paid to the state party. There's no need for money tomorrow night. There's no need to bring your voter record or anything of that nature. All you need to bring is really your ID. If you want to print out your voter registration card or bring that, you can feel free to, but you've already provided that in your precinct. So as long as you're on the list as a delegate or an alternate, and you show up and you've got your voter ID, could be your driver's license, passport, that type of stuff, you will be credentialed and let into the convention. So that starts at 6. It will end, if you will, at 7. That's when the convention will start. One of the things they always teach you in the political classes is, elections start on time. So they should start timely at 7. So don't, just because you hear it's at 7 o'clock, don't show up, 5 minutes to 7 or 5 minutes after 7. Just try to show up early and get in there, because there will be a lot of people. They're expecting around 1,100, if not more, but we'll see who shows up tomorrow. So when the convention starts, this is a very standard process. The convention will start, it will be called to order. Now, since the state party has taken this over, their designee, Mark Benoit, who is the political director for the SCGOP, will be calling the convention to order. Normally that's done by the chairman, so they took that honor away from me, and Mark's going to do that. So he'll call to order the convention. And what he is going to, typically they'd go into prayer, pledge, and the Republican creed, but I think he wants to get out of there as fast as possible, or at least off the stage as fast as possible. And they're going to go straight to the election of a temporary convention officers. Now, the convention officers that will be elected are the president, the secretary. Those are the two, and the third may end up will be the credentialing committee. So we will, and apparently there's going to be a slate and competition for that temporary president. We are putting up Ray Sheen, who is our GCRP parliamentarian. Ray has agreed to do that for us. He's an independent party, good person, and I think he's trusted by everyone on all sides. The other slate, because as you know, there's 6 people. 2 people running for each of the top 3 officer slots, and there's 2 slates. There's myself, Bon Julian, Mike Voden, and myself running for 3 of those positions. And on the other slate is Sam Manley, Joe Dill, and Julie Hershey. We met with them today. They are very insistent upon who they want for their temporary president, and that's a political consultant here in town. So. We kind of objected. I mean, that's what we're against political consultants, and that's what we're trying to stop. And they wanted to force that in there. And the political consultant has already endorsed and talked poorly about our state. So, we had a meeting, trying to pull some unity together earlier today, and Sam wasn't there, but that's okay. That's what we're working through, and I don't know if we want to go in, and we can talk through questions that. But what they're going to do is we're going to have an election for who will be our temporary convention officers, president, secretary, and the credentialing committee. And once we have that, so I assume is it going to be a standing or a voice vote, or we'll have to actually write down on sheets of paper. And then once we have that election, those individuals, there will be we'll go through the invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, the Republican Creed. And this is just the way these conventions work. They'll be, because you're not really doing business until the body has been sacked. So the delegates have actually been put into place. So it sounds weird, but we'll do a temporary agenda. And that's why there's temporary convention officers. Then we'll vote on a temporary agenda. And then there will be a approval of temporary convention rules. Our hope had been that we could come to some agreement with the other slate on what that would be, so we could make this quick and easy and kind of solve any of the controversy before we got into the convention. But they were pretty insistent on the way they wanted it to run. And while we were in the meeting, just so you know, Stephen Brown is the person they delegated over to do their discussion or negotiation. But while we're in the meeting, Stephen Brown and his GOP sweep sent out a hit piece on Yvonne Julian. So it was rather disappointing, as kind of Joe opened up earlier about that. But again, we'll go through once we get those temporary convention officers elected, we'll go through the invocation pledge, Republican Creed, then there'll be approval of the temporary agenda, approval of a temporary convention rules. And this is when there's normally a break, because when we appointed that credentialing committee, they have to go out and check their numbers. And maybe it can be quick. Hopefully it'll be quick, but they'll check their numbers and come back and do what this is item number 9 currently, will be the report of the credentialing committee. What they're going to come back and report is how many delegates do they have credentialed to vote. And so they'll say, oh, it's going to be, just for round numbers, oh, we've got 1,000 delegates have been properly credentialed to vote, and 50% plus 1 would be 501 delegates. So that would be the report from the credentialing committee chair. So we'll actually pick a credentialing committee chair when we elect those temporary offices up there. So once we get the actual credentialing committee report, that's when we'll be able to approve the actual convention agenda. We'll approve the permanent convention rules, and we'll elect the permanent convention officers. Now, normally your temporary officers and your temporary agenda and your temporary convention rules will be your permanent convention officers, your permanent convention agenda, your permanent convention rules. I hope that's the way it will play out. But as I said, the other slate is, we've got 2 problems here. We got the SCGOP we're trying to fight, and that's why we thought we could come to some agreement with the other slate. But as we teach, watch what they do, not what they say. So if the battle's more with us, then are they really battling with the SCGOP, or are they working with the SCGOP? So,
hey Jeff, let me jump in for a second, if you don't mind. So just to slow it all down for the folks who are processing all of this. So you basically just got through the part of getting to the meat.
Correct.
Okay. And there'll be a lot of temporary elections getting to the meat, because that's the way conventions go. And what we're trying to do in that is there's going to actually be a vote for the temporary person presiding over the meeting. Right?
That's correct. Yes.
So what I think, just what I'm reading into this, and make sure that the folks on the phone here is,
okay, let me take that.
What we really don't want is a political consultant from one of the from one slate or from the state being the one who's presiding over the meeting, unless we want to get run over as we the people. That's my interpretation of that. Jeff, is that sort of what you were saying, or is that I'm just misinterpreting all this?
Joe, that's 100%. Everything we're about is we the people. We want to take the professional politicians, the money special interests, the lobbyists, and the political consultants out of the equation. And the other slate was very insistent that their political consultant run it. And I made the simple statement is like, well, that person was at the forum on April 10th, and he was bad mouthing our slate to people. He was walking around talking to folks and bad mouthing our slate. And that's, you know, this should be a fair and equal process. It should be completely transparent. And, you know, it was unfortunate that, you know, that was a sticking point. Stephen Brown was not going to compromise on it. I was like, and, you know, I had this issue at our first precinct or our precinct reorg 2 years ago. The establishment wanted to force down who was going to be. And you think about when you did your precinct meetings, you know, you started off with a president or whatnot, somebody to supervise the meeting or the elections, and the establishment tried to push through their person. And I was like, no, that's not going to be fair. I will take anybody but their kind of pick. And we just randomly picked somebody. Now, I don't think we can randomly pick somebody tomorrow, but, you know, that's why we want to put up Ray Sheen.
Yeah, now Ray is just kind of, for those of you who don't know, Ray's very even, very methodical and pretty even. So there's going to be a vote, and the delegates are going to have to vote on who they want to be the one who runs it. Yeah. And the other person's name is what again? I'm just hearing
a gentleman by the name of Chris Sullivan. He's
Chris Sullivan, political consultant, or Ray, who's the parliamentarian, the rules guy for Greenville GOP.
Yes. Seems
pretty obvious. Rules guy for Greenville GOP would be a good person to administer, to make sure that it doesn't get sneaky and weird.
Yeah, I was a little disturbed that they were insistent upon a political consultant, but they also, you know, the three people on the other slate, you know, they couldn't handle the meeting or discussion themselves. They had to delegate it over to Stephen Brown. And as I said, you know, maybe initially while we were in the meeting, which started at 1:30 today, and I think ended about 4:15 at 3:30, and we didn't know the final. We didn't know about it until after we got out of the meeting. But at 3:30, there was an email that came out from Stephen Brown. So we're in the meeting discussing with him. At 3:30, an email came out from his GOP sweep group, trashing Yvonne Julian. So
there was a question. There was a question in there. I want to make sure I address it. Ray Sheen, I don't know how to spell his last name. Sheen.
Correct.
Sheen. And just again, for those just summarizing, so the Greenville GOP, the America First slate reached out to have a meeting with the GOP sweep slate to try to get unity going into that meeting and how we're going to run it. And during the meeting, they sent out a hit piece on Yvonne. Yes, it just reminds me of the Japanese in Pearl Harbor.
It's everything is a teachable or learnable moment. And you know, I mean, it plays into what we say. It validates everything we've been talking about and complaining about for day one. So
anyway, so let's get back to then the flow. I'm sorry to stop there, but the flow of the actual convention. You right. Just gotta laugh sometimes about this stuff. It's funny.
I laughed. Yvonne laughed. She was like, you know, it got forwarded to her by one of her neighbors, and the neighbor's comment was, well, it appears pretty desperate. So that's kind of our theory, is they appear pretty desperate about, you know, what they're trying to do. But essentially, you know, we'll call the meeting, the commission to order at 7. We'll we'll do the election for the temporary president. We'll go through voting on temporary agendas and temporary rules, and then we'll get back the report from the credentialing committee. And at that point, we're actually seated in our spots, so we can actually conduct business at that time. And at that time, we'll actually vote on permanent officers, which should be the same people we voted for last time. So hopefully that'll be easy. Permanent officers, permanent agenda, permanent rules. And then we will, you know, quite frankly, you know, very simply go into the election. And the election is for the top 3 officer spots with the Greenville County Republican Party. It will be chairman, it will be first vice chair, and it will be state EC. And there'll be 2 people, unless, you know, running for each of those spots, unless, you know, and we can't take nominations from the floor, but there will be a formal nomination. You know, if we do, I think what we have decided we would like to do is somebody will put forth a motion. Instead of doing 3 different elections and taking a lot of time to do an election, count the votes, all that stuff, we're going to put forth a motion is what I expect. And the other Yvonne and Mike have agreed to this, and we're just running it by some other folks to make sure everybody's in agreement with it. We're going to do a motion to vote on the slates as a whole. So here's slate number one, being Jeff or Yvonne, Mike, and Jeff. And here's slate number two, being Sam, Joe Dill, and Julie Hershey. And pick whichever one you want. And then that way we can just do one single vote and be done with the whole process. That would be my hope. Let's keep it easy. Let's keep it fast. There will be a credentialing or teller committee. We'll also pick, I skipped past that, but when we're doing the credentialing and all that, we'll pick a teller committee, and we're going to put this on a slate for everyone. So we'll have the 90 delegates we're going to vote for, but I guess now we've got to add in a slate for the president, the credentialing committee, and the teller committee, and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we're still putting all this together. We tried to negotiate this with Stephen Brown, since he's the one that's kind of backing all this other stuff, months ago. But he never agreed to have a meeting until today. So maybe it was just wasting our time since it's in out a hit piece while we're actually there trying to bring
So let me make sure. So just for the, again, folks on the phone. So the default is we're going to vote for chairperson, first vice, and state committee, executive committee person. Right. That's the default. That's the default.
And think about how long it would take. It could take 30, 45 minutes each. I mean, if there's a nomination, a second, a speech, and then you got to vote, and then they take those votes back and count them. There's going to be about 1,100 votes. In theory, it could be simple, and it may take 20 minutes to count those votes and come back and report. But it could take a little longer. There could be issues or concerns. That's why, it's kind of my theory that if we just vote as a slate, because I think people, you pick one side or the other. And I think a lot of people, we've tried to, get out there and let everybody, see both groups and see what their plan may be, or if they don't have a plan, and just, go ahead and make your selection that way.
But that will be voted on by the body. So the delegates will, I don't know how many, there's like 1,500 delegates, roughly.
It's about, I don't know if the final number was 11 or 1,200. I think that.
Okay.
Because they've been very adamant of not letting new people on the delegate slate. So.
Okay, so 11 to 1,200 delegates. So they would do a vote by ballot on that motion, if that motion is seconded and if that motion is called to a vote. Is that correct?
It could be a voice vote. It could be a standing vote. It could be a written vote. So if everybody wants to do it that way, hopefully just the yay versus nay. There was a censure motion in Pickens yesterday for Senator Lindsey Graham, and they just did a standing thing. Everybody in favor of the censure, stand up. They kind of looked at the room, then they sat down. Everybody, that told them to sit down. Then everybody against, stand up. There was only 3 people against. So
that's pretty straight.
So hopefully if it's clear to the chair, that's why that permanent, temporary, and then the permanent chair is important, because they make the decision on which way the vote goes. And
what do you mean they make the decision on which way the vote goes?
They will look at the body and say, well, it looks like the ayes have it or the nays have it. And
or we can call division and say we want a division.
Correct. And that's why it's very important that we have somebody that's fair and balanced, like a Ray Sheen, as opposed to a political consultant that's hired and paid for by Stephen Brown and the other team running our convention.
I really have trouble. I have trouble with someone who's paid by one of the candidates being the temporary president. Personally, that doesn't seem smart to me.
I would agree. So that's why I knew at that meeting today, there was something fishy when they were insistent upon a political consultant being but this is the learning moment for everyone. We want everybody to learn how this process works and watch what they do, not what they say. So we'll do a motion. Hopefully we win that motion. If we don't, if there may be some people even on our side that say we want the vote each one individually. But obviously I think all of our the 2 slates, their teams. I mean, our team with Yvonne and Mike and myself, I mean, we work together. We've been working together for a year and a half now. I mean, we're a team. We're not looking at, pick one from over here and another one from over there. So So to us, it's, pick us
Okay.
as a team or pick the other team.
But that'll be decided in the meeting. It'll either be individual or a group.
Correct.
What is that called? What's the term called?
We call it a slate.
A slate vote. Okay. So it'll either be individual positions or a slate vote. Okay.
Yeah. You
So
can
now
call
we
it
got to that.
Yes.
We got through that. So those will be voted on, and then they'll be counted in the meeting.
Yes.
And then someone will come out from behind us curtain and say, the winner is this person.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
The credentialing or the teller committee chair, which we will have elected earlier, will come out and give a report. But after we do that vote, whether it's 1, 2, 1, 3, or just the 2 slate, 3 separately, or just the 1 slate, then we go into the election of the state.
How will we know who are the right? I'm sorry, that's the wrong words. Who are we promoting as the teller committee chair?
We don't have the names yet. Our hope was we could come to some agreement with the other side. Maybe it'll be some people probably from our Greenville GOP teller committee. So
okay.
They're finalizing that stuff tonight. So it's unfortunate. I wish we had this stuff, a week in advance. We could have been doing trainings on how this is going to work, but unfortunately this is just, it was last minute with the SCGOP not having any discussions with us about it until Friday morning. And then it's been last minute with the other slate.
Okay.
Playing this game till tonight.
So we don't know yet. We don't have a name to give you to the people on the phone about the teller committee person.
Correct. Yes, but I mean, it will be on this voter guide or slate voter guide that we'll provide out hopefully tonight. In worst case, in the morning.
Is that going to come out from the Greenville GOP or from mySCGOP?
It will come out as a candidate communication. That's
okay.
You're seeing, what you'll see is we've given the other slate an opportunity to do this. We've been sending out emails from the Greenville because everybody's used to getting emails from Greenville GOP. So we send out an email, and other counties in the state does this too. So it's a pretty standard thing. But at the top, it'll say a candidate communication. So that's not an endorsement or anything for the party. That's just a communication that's being sent out on behalf of a candidate. So if the other party, if the other slate or somebody said, oh, I want to just, if somebody on this call decides today, I want to run for chairman of the Greenville County Republican Party, and I'd like you to send out an email to the body, and they sent us the information from the text, we would send out an email at the top, say candidate communication, and send it out to the body. It's a way, it's just
okay. So if you're not on, if anybody on the phone is not on the Greenville GOP sign up list, get on it. And if you don't get it tonight or tomorrow, just text me and I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
So we don't want you to be out lost. So that's why we're doing these calls.
Yeah.
But get on the list. Yeah,
we'll email it out. We'll put it out there on social media. We'll have actual hard copy paper at the convention Monday night.
Okay.
So some people, don't even worry about it. They're used to and comfortable with this, and they just, they know which kind of side they're voting for, and they just know they got to come to the convention and grab their piece of paper. And I hate to say, you're just, kind of like I used to be as a Republican, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I just voted straight hard. I know my team, and I'm just going to go vote straight ticket on that respect. So,
gotcha.
Because I know a lot of people don't have a lot of time for it. But
all right. So we got through that, and then what happens next?
Well, as they're probably, if we did it as a slate, as they're kind of counting those votes in the back, then after the election of those 3 officers, we're going to elect our state delegates. Now, this is going to be interesting. We're going to provide, and I know the other side, and I've heard there's a 3rd slate out of the establishment. Nate Loip has a slate of state delegates, which includes Joe Dill, and it includes Julie Hershey and Sam Manley on Nate Loip's slate, which is quite interesting, because that's our issue has been, there's who really is the establishment slate. So because if it's just us versus Sam, Julie, and Joe, then that's the establishment slate. So I think Nate's come out with another slate, but he still has their names on their slate, so it's kind of interesting. But there'll be a slate from our America First group, and it'll have 90 names. Now, the ballot that the state party is providing us, there's about 700 to 800 people that have signed up to be had their names put in the nomination to be a state delegate. So it is going to be a massive ballot, and there'll be, I guess, what, 1,100 of these things. It will be a ballot which will be several pages long. It will have, say, 700 names on it. The state party is putting it out in alphabetical order based on first name. So talk about how frustrating that is. I haven't seen a list of humans or people sorted by first name. It's usually by last name. So we're going to actually have our slate sorted by first name, but we may also have versions of it, or another version of it, say sorted by last name, in case the state party changes something on us.
But in fairness, there's going to be there may be multiple slates that are put forth as a group, a block of 90, and each person on the phone has got to choose what slate they want to vote for.
Right.
And there'll be one that's labeled America First, and I imagine there'll be one that's labeled GOP Sweep, and then there's one that's going to be labeled whatever, 4th District or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
So, so you have to be very careful. Vote for the 90, but do not go over 90. So I have not seen a copy of what the ballot looks like. The state party has not provided us a copy of that yet. But you're either going to check next to the name or circle them. I always recommend circling them, but we'll see if they'll accept it, circle how the ballot's going to look. And we'll get some instructions from, the Rasheen is, the temporary or the permanent president. He'll give some instructions on how to vote on that. And but if you go over, don't vote more than 90. So if you got to double check it, so circle your 90 names and just check it off of the slate that you selected to use. And once you do it the first time, go through the first time, check it off, go back and count it and make sure you don't go over 90. Because if you circle 91 names, they're going to throw your ballot out because they can't determine which one to take off. So it'll just be nullified. So you don't want your ballot to be spoiled just because you circled 91 names, but you also don't want to, waste a vote and just vote for 80. You hear some people say, "Oh, just vote for 85, you'll be safe." So just take your time. There'll be plenty of time to do it, but go through that and and just circle those 90 and count it, and count it a second time. And then what'll happen is there'll be what they did in Pickens, and I'm hoping we'll do the same thing in Greenville. You'll just take your ballot, which again will be several pages long, and go put it into a box. That box, the ballots for the state delegates will not be counted and announced that evening. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of people and a lot of time to count up 90 names off of 1,100 ballots and see the priority. So it's going to take a little time. The state party has contacted us and asked us to give them a list of 20 people, and they're going to pick 15 out of our list to be part of the counters. So there should be 30 counters total. They'll have their 15. Then we'll have our 15, and they'll put them in teams of 3 and 10. So that's 30 people, 10 different teams of 3, and they'll get, they'll have 10 different stacks, and they'll just count them all up. And it's gonna be done Tuesday morning, either 9 or 10 o'clock. They've got a room reserved at the library, and unless they inform us, they'll move to another location, and they'll just count them up. So,
Jeff?
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Who's going to have chain of authority over those ballots from Monday night till Tuesday?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, Dave. And what we have, because the state party asked us to recommend somebody as well. We had agreed on Rasheen to be able to do that. I mean, everybody, seems agreeable to that. We'll see what they do. But I mean, once the body gets into position, or we may have to put up a vote that Rasheen takes it and has custody over it. But I mean, we're looking for somebody fair. I mean, imagine if he's elected as the temporary and then permanent convention chair, I really don't want the paid political consultant taking it home. So that's why it's pretty important.
I think we know what would happen if he took it home. But okay.
I think what would happen, Dave. So that's why Mr. Sheen and his family are above reproach. And they long-term members of the GOP here. I don't think anybody on any side can complain about Ray Sheen. So
Yeah.
So that's why we've all suggested Ray. That's why we hope Ray will be our convention president. So everybody take your time, fill out that, make sure double count it twice, 3 times if you need to, and then just go put it in the box. And then what will happen is while you're doing that, the only other thing will be an approval of resolutions. Now there's only one resolution.
Hey Jeff, just let me check. Is there a time limit on this? Like, do I have to do it in 20 minutes or 5 minutes? It's just, how do they know when we're done?
The way they did it in Pickens is it will be part of your packet, your manila envelope, and people were filling it out during the convention.
Okay, and are we going to be sitting together, or are we going to be sitting up like all hither and yon?
Typically, you're sitting together. The state party has not asked us for the polls with the precinct names, and they're not giving us even access to the room to be able to set it up with precinct names. So my guess is people are just going to be sitting wherever. I've seen it 2 different ways. Normally it's sit with your precinct, which we highly recommend. So gather with your precinct folks, but I don't know if we're going to know how to identify where your precinct's sitting. So, so that's unfortunate. Now at Pickens, in Anderson, they had the polls and they identified precincts, and the Pickens people are just sitting anywhere. So
is it because we can't have polls, or is it just they didn't provide them, or what's the story there?
Well, we have them at headquarters from from the old days, but they didn't ask for them, and I don't think they're planning on setting them up. So I'm not sure.
Can we bring them?
You can bring them if you want to come by the headquarters and pick yours up, or we'll bring them. I mean, we can bring them all with us. That's a great idea. I'm happy to do that. Don't want to leave them in the back of the truck and somebody steal them, but we'll figure out what we can do to bring them if people want them. I'll check with Mark Benoit. Maybe he'll answer that question if they'll allow us to bring them. I can almost imagine him saying, no, we don't want 151 angry Greenville people bringing long wooden sticks and putting points on the end. So I don't know. I mean,
I would say if we can get them, I would love to get mine, and I think that'd be better if we bring them. The worst thing that could happen is they get stolen. You could put them in the back of my SUV.
Yeah, well, we'll bring them, and if they do get stolen, there is security there at the TD Convention Center. I will tell you, security will be provided by the Greenville City Police. I think the state party's hired 5 off-duty city police officers, not sheriff's department. I know nobody wants the sheriff's department handling security due to the fact of Hobart Lewis's involvement and participation in some of this stuff. So everybody's very sketchy about that. So as people are either doing or filling out the state delegates, and Ray, will hopefully be managing this, then they'll go to these resolutions. So the only one out there is for the Freedom Caucus, is to censure the GOP, the House Republican GOP caucus, Republican caucus. And we have no problem. Well, obviously everybody recommends voting on that. I think, so that would be the only one. I think that can be quick and easy. Just somebody will read out the resolution and then just, vote for it.
So that's a 4 resolution, it's for censuring the state Republican Party for asking the people to sign the oath. Is that correct?
Well, not the state party, but the House, South Carolina House Republican Caucus. So,
House Republican Caucus for asking everybody to sign an oath of allegiance to elected officials.
Correct. Yes, and not to their citizens and not to the Constitution. So exactly. So once that is done, there'll be a benediction, and then we will recess the convention. You don't adjourn the convention. You recess it so that the body could be called back at some later date. And we will need to call the body back not this coming June, but June a year from now, because that'll be that's when we'll vote on presidential delegates to the presidential, the national, because for the 2024 elections. So
okay,
that's it.
That's
good. 42 minutes to talk about it. So I don't know how long it's going to take to do it.
Yeah. So we're going to take 10 minutes of questions here. Feel like this was just important to do. Jeff, thanks for, first of all, thanks for 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears. And then second, thanks for taking 42 minutes to explain it. Okay, if you have a question, you could either type it in the chat and I'll read it, or you could come off mic and say your name and your question. Here's what I don't want. Please don't rant. That's not a question. A rant is not a question. And please don't bash anybody, because a bash is not a question. So we really want questions about the convention. And I'm just asking for those two kindness, politeness ground rules before we go. So type them in the chat or come off mute and ask your question.
Yeah, I see one question from John Clark on there. Has the SCGOP shared the forms with us after the makeup? No, I doubt you're going to get them tomorrow. They have not shared back your Form 1s or the third copy of that. So, you know, and as you'll recall, you know, they didn't give us any of the records after after we were elected here. So we're still in that battle, but what's been fortunate, and hopefully you've seen some of the updates, you know, there'll be a different composition of the state executive committee with all the victories we've had in other counties, you know, on America First side and what we've been doing. So, you know, so I'd love to get the forms for you, but unfortunately they don't.
Okay, and is there an agenda we can have, or is that what's just
That's what I walked through. It's, when we send out the slate, we'll send out a proposed agenda. I mean, yeah, I've got a copy of what they had proposed, but we don't want to send out a, you know, if it changes a little bit, because, you know, everything could change on the agenda. We're going to have to vote on an agenda and approve the agenda. So that's why we try to work with the other slate, make this, you know, really easy and simple, you know, because, you know, starting on a Monday at 7 o'clock at night, I mean, even some of the Anderson and Pickens, you know, which were very simple, you know, they took 3 hours. You know, I don't, you know, if it gets complicated, I mean, my goodness, it could take, you know, 4 or 5, 6 hours. I mean, that's crazy, and it's going to be a problem. And, you know, what our hope was, you know, and certainly talking to the other slate is, you know, we need to show unity of Greenville as opposed to the SCGOP. And, you know, watch what they do, not what they say. So even though the other slate in this case is saying that, you know, they're seem more interested in fighting us than fighting the state party. So
now,
we'll see.
Carrie had a question. Teller committee, is it TELLER?
Yes.
No, it's a simple question.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
I love simple questions, Carrie. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. I'm glad I got it right too. It was my first correct answer for the day. Anybody else have a question?
No, I have something to say though, Joe.
Sure, David.
Yeah, you know, Joe, I really appreciate what you said at the beginning about 95% of the people being good. And, you know, after all this is said and done, we do have to pull together, because this is much bigger than personality. We have to bear down and make sure the right people win in 2024. Otherwise, our country is lost.
Right.
So thank you for your statement, you know, at the beginning of the meeting. I think that's something for us all to remember. Treat each other with respect and with love in your heart.
And Dave, you're right, and that's why we always emphasize being professional, but be persistent. Don't be railroaded or run over. And that's why, you know, we really had a hope to be able to do something. I mean, leaders should talk and leaders should unify and provide leadership. And when they're more self-interested, I don't know where we're going to go on Tuesday morning, Dave, quite frankly. So I'd hope we'd be able to work some things out.
Yeah. All right. We have a question from Glenn. I'm going to put it in the hold category. This is about the hit piece. Let's just make sure we continue to focus on the logistics of the convention first. Any other questions around the convention? What to do? When are they going to get the voting or anything like that? I mean, when are they going to get the list, or any other questions that people have?
The question: are we allowed to bring drinks, snacks?
Somebody's asking the question: are we allowed to bring drinks or snacks? I don't know. I would certainly, I mean, I don't think the convention center is going to be going through pocketbooks in that sense. So, or bags. So I'd bring it if I were you.
I always carry food in my
Olga
purse.
always brings food and drinks with her. So, yeah,
Yeah, you don't want to get tired and cranky and or hangry.
yeah.
No,
Well,
bring your food.
bring food. Sure.
All right, other questions? Twice. 3 times. Last call for questions. Reminds me of almost missing my plane the other day.